So, Paul versus Tyrannosaurus Rex Woodley was, well.
At this juncture, he's...
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit!
This juncture, he's... This juncture, he's...
Guys, I don't even want you to like or sub or comment. I just want you to hear me out. Also, thank you for getting me to 290 subscribers. Thank you so much. I liked being on Fox's channel. I like being on the Ninja's channel. But holy cow, guys, what a disappointing event. I really enjoyed this card. I will eat my words. I did think this event was gonna flop. I know it didn't flop. I already know, guys. Tommy Fury looked pretty decent. I think he has a lot to work on in terms of technique and skill. He was, threw his punches too wide. He wasn't, what's the word I'm looking for? He wasn't, sharp. He needed to be more sharp with his punches. You know, he would kind of have his hands down too much, and he would take damage that he didn't need to. I think he needs to work on his speed, his power. The guy's got a long way to go. I think Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury would be a mismatch. I don't want to see it. I think Tommy Fury would beat Jake Paul purely on points and outbox him. Because while Jake Paul and Tommy Fury might not be levels apart, Tommy Fury is at a different level than Jake Paul in terms of technical boxing skills. And, you know, I think if Tommy and Jake fought, Tommy would maybe lose a round and get hit with a couple of good shots. Maybe he'd go down, but I think he'd outpoint him and get him on a unanimous decision win. And you best believe that Mr. Paul will not be taking that fight with Tommy Fury, purely on the basis that after this fight, Jake knows he is nowhere ready to box someone like Tommy Fury, who isn't this great all-around boxer, but he is a pro boxer. And when you're a pro boxer and an MMA fighter, it's a very different type of game. This fight was probably the closest we ever got to seeing Mr. Paul knocked out like Nate and put to bed. We were this close, guys.
He could have come so close.
So close. We were literally stinking seconds away from Mr. Paul losing. It was literally, I'm so frustrated. Like, I almost wanted Jake to just knock out Tyron, because then it'd be like, oh, well, that just happened. But, no. Like, it's like, I just can't even comprehend it. How can you not go for the kill, Tyron? How could you not go for the kill? Now, his answer to this was pretty, it made sense. He said the purpose was because he did that, and he went ape crazy, and he got knocked out. He was traumatized by his past fights. He was too passive. Make no mistake, guys. Woodley was this close to knocking out Jake Paul and beating him. Now, having said that, he was, his output was really poor. He didn't throw a lot of shots. And when he did land, it was like 2 punches out of like, you know, that landed in like one single round. But Woodley was at first I was like, oh my god, what he's gonna do then is gonna be the next Nissan Gib. He was coming in with the crab stance, but he switched it up. He did really good. And he had good defense, good head movement. He did more advanced things that I told him not to do, but he did anyways, and he did it extremely well. He landed some very quick jabs that landed. He was able to block a lot of Jake's punches, and a lot of them just touched the gloves of Woodley. You can tell that he trained hard. I think he was honestly in better condition, and I think maybe this was the first time that one of Jake's opponents outworked him. He had all of the boxing skills, the tools to take Jake out in that fight. This was Woodley's fight to win. And I watched the Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul fight back, and you can definitely see that Tyron is taking up a lot of Floyd's tricks and movements and whatnot. But again, I think Tyron was trying to be like Floyd, but the big difference is that Floyd would actually fight back and he wouldn't be too passive. And I think Tyron was thinking, let me outbox the guy, let me win on points. But I think it was a fool's errand to do that, because Tyron Woodley could not outbox somebody that's been doing it consistently for 3 years. The negatives is he never used the jab. I'm telling you, Jake Paul does not do well with pure pressure that's smart, that comes with technique. Woodley came in with the jab, and Jake just went back. Woodley came in with the jab, came in with body shots. Would have won on points and would have done so much better. I watched True Jordy's live stream, and Vidal Riley said if he came in with the jab and he was telling him Woodley to do all these things to cut the ring, Woodley was cutting the ring. He was applying the pressure, but there was nothing coming at there, and that's because he was too passive. He was too scared. He didn't want to be turned into a meme. It was more mentality. I also just don't think he knew how to counter well. He knew how to follow up. I think there were a lot of basic things that Woodley still couldn't do. But for how little time Woodley had, he came out pretty much at the same level as Jake. Jake went toe-to-toe with somebody that was pretty... Like, I honestly think Woodley was a better boxer than Jake, but Jake had better boxing IQ and understood the boxing game better. But ultimately, I feel like Tyron Woodley and Jake Paul are 50-50 fights. You know, Tyron Woodley Jake Paul finally found somebody that could go toe-to-toe with him, that's at his level, that's at his, like, Tyron Woodley and Jake Paul don't have a lot between them. There's not a huge gap between them. They are perfectly fit for each other. All I've wanted from Jake Paul, and from his fights, from his boxing career, is to find somebody that can be his equal. And Tyron Woodley is Jake Paul's equal. He was like Logan and Taylor Holder. Overthinking, getting nervous, being too passive, and letting the other guy have too much aggression, come and be more active. And honestly, I don't think Jake or Woodley wanted it more than the other guy or had more heart to go on. And I also think Woodley has really good cardio. Like, he surprised me. He was definitely tired, but he wasn't as gassed as Jake was. Appeared quite average. He did not live up to the hype, the godlike status that people have been saying he's at. He is in no way... he is in no way ready for a pro boxer. A very good pro boxer. No way. Maybe he could be the journeyman. But, having said that, I definitely do think he's in God tier list because Tyron Woodley's boxing skills were not YouTube boxing level. Tyron got hit with some big shots, came back, had good defense. Jake had to do stuff with a good opposition, good opponent. So I think Jake Paul is in the God tier list. I definitely do think this was his toughest fight. His first real fight. This was the first fight that I was like, you can't take away from this. You can't discredit this. No other YouTuber besides Jake, Logan, and KSI could actively stand a chance with Woodley. Jake proved that he has a chin, that he's got cardio. Well, I'll say this. Jake proved that he had cardio, but it was very sloppy cardio. I personally believe Woodley had better cardio. I think Logan and Jake and their Achilles heels is cardio, and they do better in the opening rounds rather than the later rounds, which is what I said. It's the Conor McGregor syndrome. I think, for example, KSI has better cardio and is sharper than Jake in the later rounds, which is interesting and kind of what I thought, but I wasn't sure. I also think that Jake, he had a good chin. He took that shot. He came back. But if Woodley went in for the kill and went crazy, Jake wouldn't have survived. Plain and simple. But honestly, as much as Jake can take a punch, I don't think he has the heart or the motivation or the mentality to continue. Whenever Woodley was hitting him, Jake was up against the ropes, going away from Woodley, running away from him. He didn't want to engage him. When he did get hit, he started to get clumsy and lazy. And in the later rounds, when Woodley should have taken advantage, Jake got sloppy. His technique was honestly really poor, and honestly, like, he did literally what Ben Askren did in sparring. He did some pretty horrific moves. His footwork was a huge thing that he needs to work on. Along with coming in with shots where half of his face is open, he's doing the exact same flaws he did back in January of 2020. I don't think Jake has improved a lot since he fought at Nissan Gib. And he only got Woodley with one good shot, and it slightly rocked Woodley, but then Woodley recovered pretty quickly. He recovered better than Jake did. He's making basic fundamental mistakes. He's got a long way to go. I think that, you know, his positives was that he feinted a lot. Woodley bit into the jabs that Jake was throwing. He was able to keep Woodley on the inside, and he came with some strong jabs, good body shots, combinations was really good. He had good enough power to put Woodley to get Woodley a little bit rocked. So Jake definitely had some positives in this fight. Resilience, you know, obviously not a lot of people who are 3 years into boxing could perform the way Jake did. He certainly used a lot of the tools in his toolbox, but it definitely seems like, and even Mike Perry said this when Mike Perry sparred Jake, he did good in the opening rounds, but then once Perry started applying pressure, Jake lost all of that. Jake does really good in the opening rounds, but in the later rounds, he kind of all falls apart. But I think the beginning is definitely his strongest point. As a guy that's been boxing for 3 years, he's quite decent. As an overall boxer, he's very bad. He's trash, you know. And it showed that Jake is very beatable. If you have a good jab, you come in with pressure and you do it correctly, and when you hurt Jake, you go in for it and you drag him into the later rounds. He can't survive, and you can beat him then very easily. So, or you could just outpoint him. I think Jake needs to work on the cardio, the footwork, the pressure, the speed, the head movement, a lot of head movement, working on not doing this and leaving yourself open. Like, there were basic things that I've seen Jake do again and again and again that he hasn't worked on. And this is what I'm saying. Yes, men Flores. BJ Flores was told back in November, hey, gotta work on Jake's footwork. He said that's not an issue. That literally happened. So I think Jake just needs a better camp, and he could really go places. But he needs to stop getting yes-men, and I think he just needs to get pushed more. I don't think he was as in good shape as Woodley was, and I think he was overestimating Woodley. And he looked more average than he could have. And he got exposed a little bit, and that's what people have been saying. And that's what I'm saying. Don't take these easy fights, because you're going to get exposed when you get the real deals. And I'm sad that happened with Jake. For Woodley, he needs to improve on countering, following up, and just aggression. And when you're getting someone hurt, do that. And now that Woodley knows how Jake fights, I think Jake could be in a lot of trouble. I think there should be a rematch. This is a fight that makes sense. Everyone else that Jake wants to call out is either on contract in the UFC or KSI, who needs a fight or two. This is a fight that makes sense. I got Woodley winning the second fight. I'm just going to put it out there. I think that Jake could win this. It's another 50-50 fight, one that I think Woodley can win. And I think the reason why Jake won't take the second fight is because from a business perspective, Jake knows he was this close to losing, and he knows that if he fights Woodley again, he's got a very, very, very high chance of losing, and that's why he won't take the second fight. And again, I hate to say this, but Jake is a coward. He is a business boxer, not a real boxer. He's not about this life, which is why he won't take this fight, which is why he won't take the Tommy Fury fight. Watch it, guys. Watch it happen in real time. You will understand what I'm saying. What I have been saying is correct. He is a ducker, and he is a coward. I highly doubt it will happen, because Woodley has what it takes to beat Jake. He can beat Jake, and Jake knows this, and he won't do that. And that's so frustrating, because that's a fight I want to see. I want to see you come over that adversity. So my whole opinion on the split decision win, you can make a very valid, solid, almost you could say factual argument for Jake Paul winning. He was closer to winning than Woodley. He outpointed him, but not by a lot. Personally, I think it should have been a majority draw with an edge to Jake. If Woodley won, it would be more controversial, and I don't think that should have happened. I think both guys didn't throw a lot of punches, and Jake obviously threw a lot more than Woodley, but they were averaging like there was 2 punches in between. Like, Paul would land 4 and Woodley would land 2. Like, it was very close. It was a close fight. It wasn't like there was a huge gap. And I think Woodley landed the more crisper, cleaner, more effective, more powerful shots. But Jake did come in with combinations and body shots and did outbox Woodley, but not really that well. And he just more did body shots. So I personally gave 4 rounds to Jake, 4 rounds to Woodley. I could agree with 4 rounds to Jake, 3 rounds to Woodley, but I don't think it should have been a unanimous decision for Jake Paul, because I don't think either guy did enough, and no one was dominating each other except Woodley, but it was only for a minute. And I think if Jake had a very decisive round, he would have won, and I would have agreed with it. But the decision's the decision. I respect it. I give props and credit to Jake. He proved a lot in this fight. I think KSI versus Jake Paul makes sense now. I think if I'm JJ, I would be like, okay, Jake's got a lot of holes. And if I'm being honest, I think, KSI and Jake, technically, I think Jake is always above KSI in a good chunk of ways. But I also think that this is still a close fight. I know people are going to hate me for it. I still think it's a 50-50. I still think KSI can sell the arena. I still think there's going to be interest. I still think that KSI and Jake Paul would bring in draws, would bring in pay-per-view numbers. KSI has sold out arenas and had 60,000 people screaming for his music. It would make sense. I think when the fight does happen, KSI will have had more fights, and his profile, along with Jake's, will be even higher than it is right now. And I do think that KSI can beat Jake Paul. But this logically, statistically, factually, Jake Paul is likely to win. But I still back JJ. I'll still support him. And I think that no matter what happens, KSI and Jake Paul will both hit the canvas. Both will have their moments of victory. And whoever loses, people will be like, wow, they didn't lose embarrassingly, and that's what 100%. I'm gonna stop talking about KSI because I just think it's toxic, and it's an argument that we should just put to rest until KSI has his first boxing fight. And I know KSI talked about Jake. I don't think KSI is overlooking him. I don't think you should underestimate him, but I definitely do think we've seen that Jake Paul is still a boxer that you can tell has the skill level of 3 years like KSI, and I think that's a fight that will work out. I don't know who Jake should fight next. But yeah, man, I give Jake my credit. I give Jake my respect. I think that was a worthy fight. I think it really showed that Jake has what it takes. I consider him a fighter now, and I'm glad he proved me wrong. I'm glad that I don't have to downplay Jake anymore, and that I can consider him legit. I don't want this video to go too long, so like, sub, and comment. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for all the new subscribers, and it's every day, bro. It really is every day.